With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening. Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg. I'm your host for Yoga Birth Babies, and today we're talking about infant milestones and occupational therapy. What should you expect from your 3, 6, 9-month, and 1-year baby in terms of milestones? And if you're not seeing that, how do you help support them? To have this conversation, I have Nekole Eaton. She is a conscious parenting coach, a speaker, a pediatric occupational therapist specializing in child development, and a certified lactation counselor. Over the past several years, she has built an audience of over 75,000 subscribers on her YouTube channel with over 4 million channel views and its rapidly growing online business. I had the most wonderful talk with Nekole. In fact, after we finished our podcast, we continue to talk. She is just a delightful person, and I wish she didn't live in California because I would want to be her friend. She is just fantastic. So I think new parents will appreciate this. Pregnant people to know what's ahead will appreciate this. Nekole just lays everything out and is so open and honest and just a great person. So enjoy. Before we get to that, I just want to remind you that from now on, all our classes are going to be online. We don't know when we're going to open back up on the Upper West Side, but we have really expanded our program for our online audience, and I absolutely love it. So keep joining us for our yoga classes. We've got the prenatal, the postnatal, the baby, and me. We have prenatal every single day of the week, so no excuse not to get your yoga in. And you get the link for 24 hours. So if you can't make our 10 a.m. class on here on the East Coast, sign up and do it when you can later. You'll have that opportunity to continue to practice and be part of our community. And we also have that same thing for our workshops. We've got our childbirth ed, our partner yoga massage, breastfeeding, you name it, we have got it here for you. I also want to take a moment and thank everyone that's left a rating and review. It helps people find the podcast. If you hadn't had a chance to do that, please go ahead and do that. Last announcement, our fall online teacher training is already full. I'm so excited. We are possibly doing a winter online, but again, we'll also be doing our spring, hopefully in person, if not online again. And I think that's because we can't do our traveling. So I think that's what's going to have to happen. I don't think traveling to the different parts of the country right now would be a good idea. So if you're thinking that you want to explore the PYC methodology, we got you covered. I hope you join us. All right, I'm going to take a super quick break. And when I come back, please enjoy my conversation with Nekole.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woo-hooer, a hand clapper, a high-fiver? I kind of like the high-five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Hi, Nekole. How are you today?
I'm doing so good, Deb. Thank you so much for having here.
I'm absolutely thrilled to talk to you. I've had students for a while saying they want to learn about milestones. It makes them very anxious. And when I stumbled upon your work, I'm like, I found my lady.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's start with just telling me a little bit about yourself and what brought you to your work.
Yeah. So now I do intentional parenting coaching for, new mamas. And I'm also a pediatric occupational therapist, as we know. And I got into occupational therapy, strangely, through my mother-in-law who's in nursing. And I was looking for a career change, and she just sort of mentioned OT. And the funny thing about it was, admissions is like once a year, and I was coming close to the deadline, and I did a quick Google search, and it was like an intuitive pull, like, I think this is going to work. So I went all in, did the pre-course work, and went through the schooling, and then just knew. I was like, oh, this is home. So that's how I kind of got into OT, and then I found my way into peds. And that's just my joy in my heart. Kids are so much fun, and every kiddo is just so different. And I feel like I learn so much from them, maybe even more so from them than they would learn from me. And so it's a beautiful opportunity to have this symbiotic relationship where they are unknowingly providing beauty to me while I help advance them in their life skills.
That is beautiful. Now, I know OT because my son's been having OT for years, but there's a lot of people. It's funny, like before my son had to get OT, I knew what PT was, physical therapy,
yes.
But I'd heard of OT. I just didn't actually know what occupational therapy was until we were doing it. So can you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. So most people actually, it's the same. They and that was me too. Hadn't heard of occupational therapy, but definitely knew PT. So occupational therapy is, it's really centered around helping people become more independent in the occupations that have meaning to them. And so when I say occupations, I mean anything and everything, like getting dressed, self-feeding, learning to play or socialize with other kiddos. So we work with everyone across the lifespan, so newborn to the elderly population in various settings, but it's really about enabling people to do the things that they love to do in a more independent and functional way.
So how does that relate to babies?
Yeah. So with babies, a lot of people think, well, they have no occupations. But babies, their main priority and focus and how they learn is through play. So by helping them and enabling them to engage and play, that is where they're doing most of their learning, and they're building the skills, like the physical skills, the social emotional skills, to go on and do the really important occupations of our life, like learning to self-feed, learning to get dressed, learning to use the restroom, learning to socialize with others. So it all begins foundationally with play and that social interaction between parent or caregiver and baby.
Yeah, I find that so interesting. So my son started it when he was, I think maybe four, for fine motor skills, for helping him prepare to write. And I remember they would do things like obstacle courses, and it was really, when they said we're going to do this, and the great thing about New York City is they handed out like hotcakes, so we got it there through the Board of Ed. I thought it was going to be a fight to get him there. Not at all. Like, he's like, okay, great, let's do it. Like,
awesome.
They made it really fun. And I think that helps kids when they're older. But I guess let's also, for today's podcast, really focus on babies. So, because babies, you're going to pick them up and bring them. They don't get much of a choice. So how can OT, I guess maybe even let's start talking about, I was going to say, how can OT help babies reach milestones? But maybe we should just even talk about, what are milestones?
Yeah, that's a great question. So milestones are kind of like these big developmental moments that tend to happen universally for babies, typically developing babies. And so when you think of milestones, I mean, in an adult, we think of milestones as like, getting married, having a baby, moving across the state. And with our little ones, their milestones consist of like holding their head up, or, learning to sit up, learning to bring food to their mouth, pulling to stand, crawling, eventually walking. So these are like the major developmental milestones in infancy.
So then how can OT work help them find that? And also, I'm wondering, because I feel like our culture is pretty fast paced, Are there variations and expectations? Are people perhaps pushing or have this idea of having to reach milestones earlier than someone should? I guess that's a multi-question question.
No, I'll tackle the second part of your question, and then you can remind me of the other one, just in case I forget. I am almost 6 months pregnant, so, it starts to get a little loose. But so for the second part of your question, I think that one, it was such a big piece of my motivation to start the YouTube channel because there are a lot of parents who just don't know what to expect developmentally. And so when you are just watching and comparing your child's development to your, friend's child's development or a kid you see at the park, it can become overwhelming. And you might think in your head, like, oh, wow, look at that kid who's, climbing up the slide backwards, and my kid's not doing that yet. Where if we don't have the foundational piece of understanding how typical development unfolds, then, you might be comparing apples and oranges. Some kiddos may be doing things way ahead of schedule, and it doesn't mean that your child is not on track. So, I love and support parents just kind of having that basic understanding of like, what is typical development? That way I don't get in my head and I don't get overwhelmed trying to push my child when really they're doing just fine. They're doing great.
Are there universal, and then I'll get back to that other question I had, but are there certain universal milestones? Because we're all human, but at the same time, I feel like certain places push other things. Like some places push reading earlier than others and solid. So are some more social and some just universal? Because again, we all have more or less the same body.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great question. So with the developmental milestones, how the, knowledge is broken up is into like the 5 main categories. And so within that, you have fine motor skills, gross motor skills, language, cognitive skills. So like our ability to problem solve. And then we have the social emotional skills. So I think those 5 categories are the universal categories. And within them, you have, as you're saying, like the ability for babies towards 1 year, like turn a page in a book, so, and of course, reading is going to be later on. But these are supposed to be universal, typically developing kiddos milestones, for the category per age. So that way, but again, as you mentioned, it's a really great point. Like culturally, some people may prioritize a category or a set of developmental skills over others. I know that here in the state of California, there's now a really big push for social emotional skills, whereas I feel like that was kind of on the back burner before. A lot of people had to focus on, obviously, the gross motor skills. Like those are the more obvious developmental milestones. Like, is my baby crawling? Is he able to roll or sit up? But the social emotional skills are so important. It's such a huge foundational piece in terms of thriving in all the other aspects. So California is dumping a lot of funding into making sure that little ones are on track in that specific category. So these things sort of ebb and flow, I think, with time and of course culture as well. But these were the categories set up to sort of cover the universal developmental milestones that babies will go through.
Can you expand on the social emotional? I find that really fascinating. And I feel like people can focus too much on the academic or the walking as opposed to, I completely agree that when the social emotional is more solid, then they're going to be able to come from a more kind of grounded, balanced place to tackle some of the other things. Maybe that could just be my own perception.
No, I agree.
Okay. So what does that even mean, the social emotional? And how does that show up through baby up through toddlerhood or maybe even beyond?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and this is actually, this is a beautiful segue because this is now really connecting to what I do today, which is really like the heart of emotional intelligence, and getting parents on board with this, because again, this wasn't a focus when we were kids. This wasn't something that was like, even in society, like this is a new thing we're coming onto. And so the emotional intelligence is, I think it has such, and there are studies that will support this, just, a huge effect on our ability to be successful in life, whether it is in academics or communications or relationships. So when we talk about social emotional development in an infant, it starts from the very early days. Like you think of one of the first really major milestones for social emotional development is, that a smile you would see around 3 months, like that eye contact with mom and baby, or dad and baby, caregiver and baby, and the cooing. It's like this, the foundation of bonding, right? Having this attachment and being able to see other people's emotions and replicate them or internalize them. So it's an awareness of other people around you, awareness of their emotions, and eventually an ability to self-regulate and process our own emotions, which again is just huge in terms of relationship building and just resiliency as you go through academics or start a business or become an employee. So it's very important in my opinion.
I feel like the self-regulating, that's something, I'll just kind of be very transparent. That's something we work on with my son. He is almost 9, and that's actually one of our things that he continues to have OT about, the self-regulating. I feel like, though, that's something that a lot of people lack. I mean, maybe this is through my lens, but yeah. I do feel like, as you mentioned, many years ago, this was not a milestone that was not significant, but as looked upon quite as much. And it was more like, can they walk? Can they talk? Can they read? And the social emotional was a little bit cast aside until more recently. Do you feel like that a lot of people need to relearn this in their teenage, young adult life?
1,000%. And so that's like where the intentional parenting, conscious parenting comes in, right? Because one of the big lessons that I had is I started this YouTube channel, and I was providing all of these developmental activity and milestone information and charts and whatever else for parents. But I realized that was step 2. Step 1 is really us being emotionally intelligent, because how are we supposed to lead our children to these milestones if we are struggling with our own emotional intelligence? I'll just kind of give you an example of it. It's like, it's easy for us to become frustrated with our kiddos, especially as they get a little bit older and their personality comes out and they have demands or wants and needs. And so if we expect them to learn self-regulation, but we have issues, or we have never really looked at how well do we self-regulate? Like, what are our coping mechanisms? What tools are we using to lead ourselves so that we can model that for our kiddos? And then it makes it a bit more challenging for our child to develop these skills, in an appropriate way. So it's really about us going first as parents. Like, we lead ourselves so that we can lead our children, because we are their model. And so I would love to see this. And I feel like it is starting to come online, and people are starting to say like, oh, this is huge. This is a game changer. And if we can the sooner we can integrate that and embody that for our kiddos, I think we'll see a huge shift in our kiddos' social emotional development.
I absolutely completely agree. I feel like in this time that we've been kind of cooped up at home, my fuse has gotten kind of shorter, and I find myself calm, then explode. And I'm like, and now I see my kids starting to do that. I'm like, oh, Deb, check yourself, because they really are following what I'm doing. But that requires a lot of somebody recognizing that. Do you feel like for the majority of the people that you work with, they recognize the modeling that needs to happen?
Yeah, no, I just, to be 1,000% transparent, like, I am with you. These times are like one of the most challenging things we've ever come across as parents. It's like, Kai, my son, who's 4, we got notified his school's canceled for the rest of the year. I'm 6 months pregnant. So like the hormonal cocktail and also trying to be aware and intentional, like it's a challenge.
Was there a little breakdown? Did you have a momentary little breakdown?
Every day I do, I feel my patience just wearing a bit thinner. But I think the beautiful thing, and I always liked to state this very clearly, is it's not about perfection. We will never be perfect. That is not the goal. I just think the beauty is in awareness, as you were saying. We can train ourselves to become more aware because a lot of our reactions are unconscious. It's
deeply
like
ingrained.
We're just triggered, and then it comes out. And so the more we work on our conscious awareness, at least we're able to have that like little gap in time where it's like, okay, I feel that I'm triggered. Let me take a breath or do something different. And that muscle becomes stronger the more that we are using it. And so you may have to re-ask your question because I think I lost it.
Oh, no, that was fine. It was more just like how we as parents, how we can start to notice these things. Because I think sometimes when we're brand new parents, I'm not brand new. I've been around doing this for a bit. But as a brand new parent, your focus is so much on developmental for your kids that you can kind of forget that you have to flex that muscle as an adult. So I guess bringing it, self-awareness can be really hard for many.
Yes. And it's like, it's a commitment, I like to compare it to like the practice of yoga. It's like there's no destination. It's a lifelong practice, maybe you have ebbs and flows. You may have periods of time where you're very consistent and then you may fall off, and like, that's cool. And this is the same thing. It's like this lifelong commitment to just to doing better. And we go through periods where we're great and in practice and other times where we really struggle. And so there are just like, various tools that I like to use to help me just be in touch with my emotions, my feelings. And part of that is having like just a very small morning routine. And I get that this will flex depending on how old your little one is. In the newer days, you probably won't have that luxury. But even if it's 3 to 5 minutes, like a quick journal session of like, how are you physically feeling? Because a lot of times, like, we are just powering through our day and we're not aware of how tense we are or how anxious we feel, just checking in with like, what does my body feel like? Because these are all things, again, that we try to then instill in our children. Like, what is your body feeling like? Or I don't know if you're familiar with because you said that your son, you were working on emotional regulation, like the traffic lights, the red, the yellow, and the green light. Like, and that's really about being in touch with your body. So if you're feeling angry, it's the red light, like I need to stop, I need to pause. Yellow might be like, I have some anxiousness, I'm not feeling great, but I'm not at my threshold. And green is like, I'm cool as a cucumber, I'm feeling great, let's proceed. So honestly, it's like going back to the basics of this, because again, this isn't stuff that most of us were taught in our childhood, so building that foundation.
That is wonderful. In fact, I have heard of the stoplight. I think I'm going to revisit that. And a lot of this, it's stuff that we can, even if someone doesn't necessarily need OT per se, a lot of it's just great for connecting to one's body and emotions, especially little kids. So I did have a question when I was thinking about Milestones. I remember, again, as a first-time parent, I got all the books to all the classes. I remember this one book, it was like black and white with shapes, and it was supposed to help. I don't even know what it was supposed to help in honesty, but it was supposed to be like an educational toy. And I was all about, for the second child, it was very different. But I researched all the educational toys, and they all had to be wooden, and they all had to be, like, I kind of went over the top. Do you think
I love it.
I'm such a cliche. I'm actually embarrassed. And then there are all these classes. Like, what are your thoughts on those type of things?
You know what? So I was told, I will say too, because it is, I feel like first time moms, like we do tend to go like over the top with all the things, like give me the high tech product, give me the best of the best if you can get it, and then you have your first child and you're like, oh, I don't really need all these things. But the things that you were pointing out are actually great. And here's the distinction I will make. So like the black and white, that's the high contrast images, which is wonderful for a newborn in terms of their visual development, because for those of you who are like, I don't know how a newborn's visual development happens, their eyes are very out of focus for the first several months, and they need these stark colors to sort of make out any shapes of like faces or whatever else. So the black and the white images with red and yellow, those very
That's exactly what I had.
perfect. But it's like, as you said, and I was the same way. It's like, oh, look at this beautiful one. Whereas like we can make it at home if you want. You can literally color in images. So you can do this like low tech, you can do this high tech. So it's not like about going out and buying the most expensive thing, but like that's a great developmental tool, and it aids in helping your baby eventually learn to track an item, which means like if you were to move it slowly across their field of vision, by 3 months, we're going to see them start to turn their head and follow the image that you're moving across their visual field. So that's a great thing that you did. That's a wonderful thing that you did. But yeah, just to your point, it's like it's easy to go overboard, and it's easy to think that we need all of these items. But we can facilitate a lot of our baby's development just by being like present and bonding and playing with our kiddo, because really like our kids learn through motivation. And when you have a baby, play is motivational. So whatever you have at home, you can use as a tool to interact and play with your baby. And that is going to really skyrocket their development. Making faces, making eye contact, making sounds, placing them on your chest for tummy time. Like these things are huge and they're low tech and they don't cost much. So I feel you. It's so easy to go overboard, but at the end of the day, the things that move the needle the most don't cost anything or much at all.
Yay. Are you listening to that, parents? Because babies are expensive, so you don't need all the education. Yeah, I did they're all wooden educational toys, tons of blocks, colored blocks. If
you can do it, go for it, but it is not a necessity.
Yeah, I realized it was slightly a mistake, because after that, he would be more interested in like the pots and pans. And I'm like,
yes.
Yeah. We're going to take a super quick break. When we come back, I'm going to ask about some specific milestones, age 3, 6, 9 months, and a year. Okay, we'll be right back.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from, with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Okay, so I know, and the reason I know this is because people have written in and asked, what are these milestones? They said, I want a podcast on these milestones, and I've had people ask me, what are these milestones? I don't know. So what are some milestones at 3, 6, 9 months, and a year? And then I'm going to add a second part. And I know you're 6 months pregnant, so there's only so much, and you have another child. So let's. So what happens if someone doesn't meet those milestones? So first what they are, and then what happens if they don't.
Okay, perfect. So at 3 months, we actually kind of touched on this before the break. 3 months, you're going to start seeing your little one visually track items. So again, if you're moving like one of those high contrast items or a toy across their visual field, you're going to start to see that their eyes are going to follow the path of the movement. 3 to 4-ish months, you're going to see that your little one's able to grasp and hold an item like a rattle in their hand. You might hear cooing and see smiling when you're making eye contact. So that social emotional development is starting to come online. And then you'll see much more stability in the head and the neck. So less bobbly and a little more control around 3 months. At 6 months, some fun things that are happening are you'll notice your little one is starting to bring things to their mouth. And so this may be your cue if you're interested in beginning solids to look into, self-feeding and starting solid foods, because your little one's showing an interest and they understand like, oh, I have a mouth, I can put things in here. And then you're getting a lot of babbling, right? So the M's and the B's and the D's. So, mama, baba, that sort of thing. Your little one might also be on all fours. They may or may not be starting to army crawl or, creep. That's okay. There's a range there. But 4-point play is great. And by 6 months of age, your little one might also be able to sit up independently for just a few moments at a time. So again, with all of these, there are ranges, so keep that in mind. At 9 months of age, what's fun is your little one is starting to pull to stand. So if you have a couch or if you have like a little activity table, they've got enough strength now to use their arms to sort of pull them upright in a standing position. And you might notice that you between 6 and 9 months, you'll hear mama or dada most likely, and pointing of fingers to indicate what he or she wants. So if he has a favorite toy, you might see some pointing, indicating like a desire. And then around 1 year, so between 9 months and a year, your little one's probably cruising, which means like not only are they pulling themselves up to stand, but now they can hold on to like the edge of the couch to sort of walk alongside, holding on, or another piece of furniture. And by a year, you're starting to have some words come on. So again, clearly like mom, dad, maybe like food or milk. And then you have some babies that are taking steps. Again, all of this is a range. So if your kiddo's not there yet, we'll get into that. But yeah, those are some of like the really big milestones that come online between newborn and 1 year.
Yeah, I remember my son starting to walk right before a year, and it occurred to me at that moment where he started to walk, I'm like, I need to buy shoes for him. Like, it didn't even occur to me for whatever reason that he actually needs shoes. I'm like, oh, it's a whole new world. But
I know, yeah. Okay.
And then my daughter started to walk a little after that, and one time I just kind of pushed her down. I'm like, I don't need you walking right now. It didn't stop her, but...
And I'll give you actually, so this is definitely more in the PT realm, but I had one of my good PT friends come on to talk about this. And so for those of you who do or are approaching your little one walking, brand new walkers, you kind of want to do a mix of on and off. So it's great for them to be barefoot because of the sensory input, right? We want them feeling different textures, like if they're outside in the grass or if they're in home and it's carpet or hardwood floor, like it's really important for sensory integration. But then on the other hand, we do want to give them some stability in their ankles. So if you don't always have to keep your kiddos in shoes is really the moral of the story. Like having them be barefoot is fine as well, but you can get like soft sole shoes just to give them a little bit of ankle support as they move into walking.
I was like, oh God, now I have to research shoes. I don't know why it didn't even occur to me that he'd need something on his feet. So let's talk about if someone's not meeting, like, is there we know that there's a variation of when these will be met, and they're kind of around 3, around 6, around 9 months. But is there a point where, like, wait a minute, we are now at 5 months and we're not having a lot of eye contact, or we're at a year and there's not much babble?
Yes. Okay. So I will give you the more OT, like stark answer here. So just so you guys know. So I like to say generally, like you have think of it as, I mentioned these milestones at 3, 6, 9 months, and a year. And most babies, you have like the bell curve, right? So like maybe 60, 70% of babies will hit these milestones at that time or right around that time. But then you have some kiddos that are going to do it sooner, like your kiddo who was walking before a year. And then you have some kiddos who are going to do it a little bit later. Like my first kiddo, Kai, he didn't walk till 14 months. So generally I say it's about 2 to 3 months, give or take. But to give you like the more black and white, like here in California, and it varies by state, but as an occupational therapist who works in early intervention, so I see kiddos 0 to 3 years old, we are given the criteria of if your child is 33% delayed in one or more areas of development. So we talked about those 5 main areas, right? Fine motor, gross motor, social, emotional, language, or cognitive skills. So if it only takes one, 33%. Now you think about your child at 3 months, 33%, there's very little margin, right? So, if your kiddo is only like a few weeks behind or it's like literally a month, then your kiddo might qualify for services. Whereas if your child's a year and they're showing developmental skills of like a 7-month-old or an 8-month-old, then that's like the threshold, right? Because that's about 33%. So it's definitely, if you notice something is off, I just always recommend talking to your pediatrician and saying like, hey, can I have a referral for occupational therapist? Because it does not hurt for your pediatrician to refer your kiddo to OT to have an evaluation done just to see, because the OT is going to look at all the areas of development. And we have specific tools that are sensitive enough to pick up on any delays. And we will do the calculations and see, like, is your kiddo on track? Do we need to monitor them? Like, so maybe they don't need services on a regular basis, but maybe we check in on a monthly basis just to make sure that your kiddo is still on track and isn't falling further behind. Or does your kiddo need weekly services so that way we can help them catch up? So yeah, that's sort of the overall picture of what we're looking for in terms of typical development.
And this might be too broad of a question, but you said the 5 areas of development. So say a kid only has a couple of those, how do you then is treat the right word or work with them to help catch them up?
Yeah, so you're asking if they only have one area in which they're behind.
Just like how would you even? Maybe I'm not even sure how to ask this. Let me think about this. So say if someone came to you, you've evaluated them. What are some things that you can do with a 3, 6, 9 month, 1 year, 2 year? Like their I guess cognitive skills are different than an older child. How do you work with the baby? I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, what do you do with those little guys? Again, so it's all play and it's all play based, right? And so, for instance, if I am trying to, let's say the younger kiddos, maybe we have a kiddo who is just showing weakness in their muscles. So they may be a little floppy. Tummy time is a nightmare. It's just they need some strengthening. Really what an OT would do, we're going to use play to help motivate them, and parents are a huge part in that. Like, we like to involve parents as much as possible because that's the bond, but it's at that young of an age, there's a lot of education. So what I would do as an OT for a kiddo that needs to build endurance and strength is talk to parents about different ways to do tummy time, because there may be like this preconceived notion that tummy time is done just on a hard, cold surface. I got to put my baby on the floor and let him scream. Whereas we have options in terms of, like I had mentioned earlier, placing your baby on your chest and sitting at an incline. So like maybe you're leaning back on the couch and your baby's awake and your child is on your chest. That's still tummy time. And some parents don't know that. And it's actually helping your kiddo because it's a more upright position, which means they don't have to work as hard to lift their head as opposed to if they were flat on the floor. So just kind of making these little adjustments and modifications in play that are still going to build the muscles and the endurance, but make it more tolerable, that make it more fun for both mom and for baby. So really, again, just a lot of education and a lot of demonstration in terms of modifying play that's still going to build skills that makes it fun for everyone.
Why do so many kids hate tummy time?
I have a whole course on this. It's a great question, though, because it's so common, and literally this topic is the most popular topic on, but that's where people find me through my YouTube channel is my tummy time video. I kind of like to break it down into a few main points. So it can be a sensory issue. It could be a muscular limitation. So, that would be getting into like torticollis or plagiocephaly, where there's an actual physical limitation, making it difficult for baby to like move their head in tummy time, or causing just like imbalance in terms of muscular development. And so anyway, I could go down this rabbit hole, but essentially as an OT, we're looking at either motor skills or sensory skills. And so sometimes babies just need some movement to calm their sensory systems, or, some bouncing to help them feel their body and space before we ask them to do something challenging. They're like, I can't feel the body. I don't know where I am. And then you're placing me down on the floor and I don't see you because my eyes aren't developed. So all of these compounding pieces go into, how our baby can react. And tummy time. So once we understand, that's why understanding development is so beneficial for mom and for baby, because when we understand what our kiddos need in their specific age range, we're able to, again, adapt and modify the activity to support them so that it's more pleasurable.
So that's why those little mirrors might be helpful, that they look at themselves. Or I used to lay on the ground with him. So it was also an opportunity to lay on the ground because I was always tired. So I would lay on the ground and he'd be there. And I did the same with my daughter, again, fatigue. That was by default that I guess I was helping them, or those little mirrors that they can look at and then often grab and try to chew on?
Yes. Those are all that was your intuition, and it's perfect, right? Because again, our kiddos are most motivated by faces, familiar faces, our smiles. So it's like we get down on their level. We're with them. They don't feel alone. We're interacting with them. They're so motivated by that social interaction that a lot of times they forget they're doing the work, and a few minutes goes by and it's like, okay, great. We did it. We're done with this session. Mirrors exactly the reflection and seeing themselves. It's like this whole new world of, whoa, what is that? And then again, the high contrast toys, the things that make noise, the things that light up. It's just appealing to the senses and helping them regulate through these challenging activities. And as we do this consistently, we're building the muscle memory, we're building the endurance, and they don't realize that they're working out, but they are getting stronger each time. And so it's like this beautiful dance, right, of expanding sensory integration while also building the muscles and the endurance and the skills and interacting with them. So
is there a certain amount of time someone should shoot for tummy time? Again, I don't want to get too kind of over the top about it. Like, you don't have to get your stopwatch out and be like, okay, we did 5 minutes, we're done. But is there a general amount of time that a parent should try to have their baby on their tummy per day?
Yeah, so it definitely depends by age. I say with newborns, shoot for 2 to 5 minutes a session. Your kiddo may be a rock star and go above that. Your kiddo may not want anything to do with the lower end of that to start. But I think the important thing is understanding where your kiddo is, and then continuing to challenge them as you do tummy time sessions. So say your child only tolerates tummy time for a minute. And that's where they're at. That is their threshold. That's their baseline. Okay, well, the next time we do tummy time, can we do tummy time for a minute and 10 seconds or a minute and 20 seconds? And yeah, they may fuss, they may cry a little bit, but again, we're down there with them. We're encouraging them. We're mixing up how we present tummy time. And these are huge baby milestones that we should be celebrating, right? Along the way to the bigger milestones. It's like, oh, wow, like my kiddo made it to 1 minute and 30 seconds this time. Like, celebrate that. That's huge. Even if the goal is to get them to 5 minutes, right? It takes time, again, to build the muscle and the endurance and the self-regulation to do those challenging activities for longer periods of time.
What are some self-regulatory things you start to give to kids as they hit their toddler years? I mean, because we always hear about the terrible twos and like there's tantrums that happen. What are some of those self-regulatory offerings we can help our kids with?
That's a really great question. So for me, when Kai was, in toddler years, I was really focused on sensory processing and sensory integration, because I realized that he had this need to move, as a lot of toddlers do, right? They have these like newfound gross motor skills and they need to use them. And so I noticed that some behaviors would increase when he was actually seeking some sensory component. So for instance, like I noticed he really loves to crash, and parents will ask these questions like, my kid loves
like run into a wall?
Yeah, or couch, not a wall. Like, jumping on the couch, jumping off the couch, jumping on the bed, like just all over the place. And parents are like, what do I do to contain my kid? Well, as an OT, we look at that and we go, oh, that kid needs some prop work, as that's like the slang word. And that just refers to they are seeking proprioceptive input. And proprioception is really like us knowing where our body is in space. So we have these, I could get into the weeds, receptors in our joints that basically tell us where we are in space. And if we aren't getting enough input, we may seek that by going above and beyond, like crashing into things to feel where our body literally is in space. So as an OT, we have tools to help kiddos get that input in a more safe way. So like I was using things like the blow up bounce horses, like the ride or the roadie donkeys and stuff like that. And I promise you, and I have videos on this, so we'll link the YouTube if any parents are looking for this later, but I would see him calm in an instant. And I would use this tool before we were doing something like a fine motor activity or sitting down to have meals together. Because, if your child's up and squirmy and can't sit down at the table for long, then like maybe that's something to look at. Like, do we need to give them some sensory needs, or they have some gross motor needs that need to be addressed before we ask them to like sit still and concentrate on something? So that can absolutely help with the emotional regulation, right? Because when their body feels calm, then they feel calm, and then they can kind of move into what it is we need them to do.
Is that the same idea of the weighted blankets? I've always I have wanted to get one for my son forever, and I have not. But I've seen them. It's going to sound like such a commercial. I've seen them on TV, but I've seen them, and they seem. And I know that when I'm upset, I like the weight of a heavy blanket on me. Like I can't even sleep, even the hottest days. I need something more than just like a sheet. So is that because it helps us feel our body and helps ground us? Or am I making this up?
No, you are not. Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. And I actually even have an adult weighted blanket now too. And people, people who have used them and find them effective will swear by like it calms anxiety. I find I get deeper sleep. So yeah, and and it goes back to even with the infants, like the swaddling, right? It's the container and feeling like held in space and being able to, again, have that sensory input up to the brain of like, I know where my body is. I don't feel like I'm falling. I have some regulation here. So that's exactly what it is. That's another tool that is used, or like a weighted vest, compression vest. So there's a lot of different ways to get that input to help us feel safe and calm in our bodies.
That, okay, I'm starting to put dots together. There was a boy in my son's preschool that would often want to wear a weighted backpack. Like it was like his thing. He'd get upset, he'd go put his backpack on. So it's probably some sort of sensory thing.
Yeah, because the weight has, for most people, a very calming effect. It's like getting a big bear hug, you know? It just literally calms our nervous system down. And then we're able to like take that breath and like come back to the moment. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I find this so fascinating. I think I missed my calling. I should have been either an OT or PT. This is so fascinating to me. Before we take a break, is there anything else about Milestones that I haven't asked that you're like, Deb, you got to get this into the podcast?
Deb, you asked a lot of great questions. I don't feel like I missed anything.
All right, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, if there is one tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents, we'll be right back.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Okay, so you have years as an OT of a lot of knowledge. You already have a child and you're pregnant with another. So I feel like you have a very clear eye into many parts of new parenthood and expectant parents. What one tip or piece of advice would you like to offer?
Yeah, you know what? This is something that I thought about recently and again, did a video on. And the one tip I would offer is allow evolution in parenthood. I think it's easy to have this fixed idea before you have a child of exactly how it's going to go down and what kind of mom you want to be or dad you want to be. I know that it was so easy for me to judge parents before I became a parent, even though I didn't like to think of myself as a judgy person. And, you know, maybe when you go into parenthood, it's like you have all of these ideas and you want to operate in this fixed way, but allow evolution to happen, because as we step into our new identities as mom or dad or caregiver, and we're evolving and we're changing as people, so is our child right before our eyes, right? Not only developmentally, but it's like we're seeing their personality emerge and their desires and their wants and their needs. And again, it's this dance that we get to do. And so having flexibility and being able to say, maybe what was a priority for me when my child was an infant isn't a priority now that they're 3 or 4. Like we've kind of outgrown this or we've evolved past this. And because I think it's easy for parents to sometimes feel shame or guilt or feel like a hypocrite. Like, I'll give you a quick example, like screen time. It's like that was something.
You say that, I laugh because that is always a fight in my house. So I am so excited to hear your thoughts. So go. Tell me about screen time.
Screen time, yeah. Like that's what, like, and especially for me as a professional, where it's like, okay, I've got like information and research on this, like I know. And in the beginning it was like, nope, not doing it at all. Nope. And you know what? First of all, it's not for the parents who manage that. I tip my hat to you, but like for a lot of us, it's not realistic to not have any screen time. But then also you need to be adaptable and flexible. And here we are in the middle of a pandemic, and many of us are trying to work from home and also be parents. And so it's like, you know what? I'm not going to beat myself up about this if my child watches a movie right now. Well, I either take a moment to collect myself or do something for me, And so, and trusting, saying like, my child's going to be okay. Like, we've got this, I'm doing a lot of other amazing things in my kid's life, and they're going to be a well-rounded, beautiful human. So just allowing that flexibility and that evolution to take place and knowing that you've got this.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate hearing that. I'm being so authentic. Like, it is the biggest struggle in our house is the conversation about screen time. And I feel like you just gave me a little more permission to open that up. Because I always like, no, we have to read. We can't do this. And it's always a fight. I want to watch. So whether nothing else happens, whether no one else gets something from this podcast, I feel that validated. So, Nekole, I cannot thank you enough for that.
Of course, you're doing amazing.
That's questionable. All right, so where can people find your work?
Yeah. Okay. So my website is www.nekoleamber.com. And I spell my first name a little differently. So it's Nekole, and Amber is Amber. So there you can find free resources. I have a podcast link there, and my YouTube channel link is there, as well as courses, or if you want to do coaching, you'll kind of find everything there. But I'm also on social media. So on Instagram, I'm at Nekole Amber. Nekole, let me check. You might have to edit. What am I? I think I'm Nekole.Amber. Yeah, I think I'm okay. So it's at Nekole.Amber. I'm also on Facebook. You can find me Nekole Eaton, last name Eaton. And then on YouTube, that's where all of the good, amazing free resources where I collaborate with other child development experts who are awesome. If you type in kids OT help, like occupational therapy, OT help, you will find me, and you will find over 150 videos to help guide you through this process.
They are great, those videos. When I was prepping for our conversation, I took a deep dive into those videos. And if you notice your numbers going up, it's because I was watching them all. They're really great. And it's the kind of thing, first of all, thank you for putting free content out there. That's so generous of you. And it's just a great place for people to start. I wish I had something like that as a new parent, because there can be such stress and pressure to be like, oh, my kid has to meet this milestone. What are these milestones? And you just make it so digestible.
Thank you, Deb. That means a lot. And I love doing that because, again, it's one of those things that I wish was around too when I was, a new mama and have this community. And so I wanted to put it out there for other parents as well. So,
well, thank you for your generosity, and thank you for some time today. I know we're all kind of living the crazy life now, and I appreciate that you carved time out for me and my community.
Oh, I appreciate the offer. It's been so much fun. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from, with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.